Hello! It's me. And it's been a second. But I'm just going to jump into it because I really don't like when people give long beginnings. So, here's the reason why I haven't made a ton of videos. Where am I looking at? One, there's really nothing for me to say that hasn't already been said. Two, I believe that when you get to a certain point in a spiritual journey, be it pagan, magical, or whatever, you get to these places of knowing and acceptance and belief where you don't feel the need to talk about it and you don't feel the need to express it to people because you don't need the outward validation. Is there a third? Thirdly, I think that if you do want to speak on it, it can be hard to put it into words, the feelings and experiences and beliefs that you have. And that doesn't make them any less real. Whereas I feel like some people will tell you that it does. Like, if you can't verbalize it, then it's not real. That's not true. That's bullshit. The human languages are just very limiting. I have no Matchy syndrome. So that's really why. But also, I think the main reason for me is that, one, I do feel like there's like nothing I can say that hasn't already been said. But two, I work a lot. I have a full-time job. I am a customer service manager at a very big place that I won't name here on the internet. But it's a story you would know. And that's not a fun job, but it pays my bills, and it pays really well. So I have to do it. I'm not made of money. Like, I wasn't fortunate to be born into a wealthy family. So I have to work to pay my bills and to pay my own way in this life. And when you work a 40-hour job, sometimes more, and you have a relationship with a significant other that you have to maintain, somewhat have some friendships that you have to maintain, that takes a lot of time. And you don't get a lot of time for yourself. So it doesn't really leave me a lot of time to make videos, or to even really delve into my spiritual life much. And I think when you start to neglect the spiritual part of yourself, or just your inner self, period, it's easy to forget or to begin to disbelieve the past experiences that you've had. You begin to like write them off as something else or explain them away. Especially when it comes to like the inner stuff, because it's not tangible. And the minute we don't have something physical to hold on to and to see, we're like, well, then it's not real. So, which is unfortunate. But also, I think a heavy level of skepticism and science and logic can really help ground you in a mystical practice. So that's really the big reasons for why I haven't been making videos. Although now I've been off sort of a mini vacation. I've been off for 4 days from my job. And so it's helped me get back to that space of when I was younger, about 7+ years ago, when I worked a part-time job, a very small part-time job, and lived on nothing, because that's what you do in your early 20s. And I loved it because it gave me all this time to be spiritual. Plus, I had a lot of bullshit to work through, as most people do when they're coming out of their teenage years and you're on your own for the first time. But now I'm past that. And since my practice always served as a way to exercise myself, I'm like, what? I now have to exercise the majority of that junk to at least to a point where I am comfortable at this point. It's like, what do you do with it now? What does your spirituality become when it no longer is shadow work and that's it? You know what I mean? Like, what else is the purpose for it then? So that's where I've been for the past 6 years. For the past hot minute, for real though, a while. Is like, what is it now? What is it now? Well, as I've said before, I came, like pretty much all of us, but I came from a Christian household, a Protestant Christian household, here in the South, in Alabama. So that was a lot of bullshit to work through. Especially being someone who identifies as gay and, well, ambiguously gay, but that's a different conversation, and also ambiguous in my gender. So as someone who is ambiguous, as queer, I guess, is what the kids are calling it now, but I don't really like that. As someone who identifies as that, that also added to like the level of bullshit I had to work out from Christian upbringing. So as I've said before, I knew very early on that, hello, focus, I'm right here. I knew early on that hello. Thank you. I knew early on that I didn't believe in Christianity, so I didn't know what I believed though. But I've always been like a magical thinker and drawn to like magical things, both realistic and unrealistic, like storybook fantasy magic, but also the idea of like something real, like what Native Americans were doing that I saw on television. So I got into witchcraft, like Wicca, right? Which is like everyone's gateway, pretty much. So I got into like Wicca, but I immediately knew I didn't like that. So then I got into witchcraft, also into like, not so much Hinduism, but like Indian culture, really, and the romantic views of Indian culture. And then that turned into like Celtic culture because I wanted to understand my ancestors. So I looked at Neo-Druidry and Celtic Reconstructionism, which a lot of the time can kind of become like Wicca with flavors of Irish in it. So I got into that. Segue also got into like at the same time Nichiren Buddhism, which is very different Buddhism from all the others. And then revisited Christianity from an academic standpoint because I was like, let me look at it now and see what it's like, but knowing that I wasn't gonna partake, I was just like, let me review this. And so I started calling myself a Hindu witch, a pagan. Those are really the monikers that I always took. Whereas as a teenager, I just called myself a mystic. Well, now I've said this before on the channel too. I'm back to just really calling myself a mystic, and nothing else. Hindu witch is still fine. That's a cool moniker. That's fine. And a gym warrior was always just a description of what I did in my head on my astral journeys and stuff like that. So that's fine. But I really just kind of call myself a mystic now. That way I don't feel too rooted in paganism or any other religions or spiritual beliefs or practices. I can just kind of float around everywhere and be a part of all of them, none of them, whatever. So again, ambiguous, like my sexuality and gender. Spiritually, I'm also ambiguous. I think that some people can see ambiguity as like chaos. And I guess on some level it is, but it's also very freeing. And maybe it's not for everyone, but it's the path that's for me. And it's taken me a long time to get comfortable in that fact. And I think now, I turned 30 this year. So now that I'm entering my 30s, so much of the subconscious bullshit that you bought into that you didn't think you did has come up, and I've just kind of been like, oh, okay, well, I don't need that anymore. I don't need that belief anymore. And it hasn't really taken work to release the beliefs. It's just kind of like, yeah, I don't believe that crap. So that's been kind of cool. I know this is rambly as fuck, but so yeah, I'm in a really comfortable place now, really good place, in terms of like a lot of stuff really, but in terms of my spiritual life, spiritual self. But I do feel a pull to want to come back to YouTube and to talk about stuff. I just want to make sure that I don't talk about like the same bullshit as everyone else. And that's not a read on anyone else's videos on YouTube, except for some people. But some people have really good videos, and some people need. Let me let me kind of backtrack. You do need beginner videos and beginner topics because at some point we're all that person. But girl, I've been doing this since what, 2003? So I kind of don't want to just keep watching the same stuff and reading the same books. I do think we're in a lull right now in terms of like physical books. When I was coming up, I mean, they were just publishing these books like fucking crazy. Like, it was just like magic book, magic book, magic book. Like, Llewellyn was on fire. And now, you really don't get books on paganism and witchcraft anymore. You get a lot of reprints, or you get just the same junk. The same how to be a witch, just shown in a different way. And I'm over that. Like, I'm so past that. Years past that. Like, I don't want to keep reading that or hashing that. You know what I mean? So, I feel like I do want to provide content for someone who is, like, you know, advanced, ego aside, but, like, you know, just who has gone down the path a little further. We've already been to the forks in the road and we chose a side. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've come through the forest and we're on the other side now. But, again, what would that content even look like to you? I mean, really, what would it look like? Because, again, also, sharing your views online like this can come off as like, let me put myself on a pedestal. Let me put an ego about myself and talk down to you. Do you know what I mean? And that's not my jam either. Also, like, I really don't like people telling me what to do in my practice, so I don't really want to tell other people what to do. Even if it does come off as, oh, I'm just suggesting this. So there's that. But again, it goes back to my initial thought, which was like, there really comes to a point where I think you get past the beginner phase, where you can't really explain what's happening and what's going on and give tips, because then after the beginner phase, the path becomes so much your own, magically speaking, that it's really hard to tell to other people. Do you know what I mean? To like parallel it to others and to give tips, or to even talk about it, period, because it becomes such a weird abstract thing, at least for me. It becomes such this weird abstract thing. Like, so much of my path is just like clairsentient, you know? It's just a knowing. It's just a feeling. Like, I don't follow ritual. I don't have structure. Like, I don't repeat things over and over and over. Which there is power in that. There's enormous power in that. Especially in terms of spell casting. Like, if you perform the same thing over and over and over years, it's going to get stronger. But you could argue that's because it's, like, become this force in your mind. And that gets into the whole, like, views of psychology and, like, how much of magic and paganism and religion, how much of all that is true. How much are we actually truly working with the energy and the forces of the universe? And how much of it is just the power of positive thinking and, like, pop psychology? Which I guess that's something we could delve into also on this channel going forward. Is like, how much is the power of the mind? How much is actually the forces of the cosmos? And does it even matter? Does it even matter? Maybe it does to you. Maybe you need to know that you're dealing with external forces. Or maybe, like me, you get to a point where it's like, I don't even fucking care if what I'm doing is real and I'm manipulating the forces of creation, or if it's just me in my head and this is a wonderful placebo effect to help me, like, keep my shit together and be a good person. Right? Like, it doesn't matter as long as you're not hurting anyone. But at the same time, we yearn, at least me, I yearn for answers. Like, I must know. Is it real or not? But, anywho, rambling as heck. I would really love if you had book suggestions, though, because I'm always wanting to read. So if you have anything, it could be about any pagan path, any religious path, pagan or otherwise, any kind of magical practices, herbalism, astrology. I mean, gosh, it can be anything. Anything. As long as it's like nonfiction. I really like nonfiction. But then it gets into the discussion of, is this path fiction? Anyway, that's all I'll say for now. Is hello, 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 and I really want to make videos regularly, at least once a week. Like, I really want that, but it is really difficult. But I really want it, but I'm not gonna say I'm gonna do it, because the minute I say that, then I'm gonna be like, no, fuck you, don't tell me what to do, like the other person inside of me. I'm gonna be like, don't tell me what to do, don't put constraints on me. But I would really like to do that. We will see what happens. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this. And I would really appreciate you taking the time to interact with me, because that's really what I crave to at this point, is like interaction with other like-minded or different-minded people. I want exchanges of ideas, which I think pretty much anyone who puts a video up on YouTube wants. Like, this is kind of a lonely existence right now. So you actually talking me back would be great. But anywho, goodbye.